Back in the year 2000, parody films were on fire. There were spoofs of everything everywhere, and they were actually fresh out of the oven and genuinely funny. That's when Scary Movie entered the scene and changed everything. It became the big dog, pulling in massive revenue while also turning into a beloved franchise. It was rude, crude, and funny, and definitely didn't pull punches. But what the hell happened? How did a franchise that started as a groundbreaking parody end up spiraling so badly that people wanted refunds after watching Scary Movie 5? Well, that's exactly what we're exploring today. The death of the not-so-scary Scary Movie franchise. Before we get into things though, we do have a very quick request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. It's a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Movie franchise synopsis. I'm sure all of us have heard of Scary Movie. It was basically a parody series that absolutely crucified the horror genre. It started off in 2000 under the guidance of the Wayans brothers, Keenan Ivory, Sean, and Marlon, and each film in the series parodied some famous household horror title. The very first Scary Movie was a mashup of Scream and I Know What You Did Last Summer, where a group of arguably stupid teenagers are stalked by an even stupider serial killer who's more serial than killer, about a year after they accidentally killed a man with their car and got rid of the body. Yup, that all sounds pretty familiar, but you can't possibly imagine the success of this first film. So of course, they had to make like 4 more. Scary Movie 2 was a parody of The Haunting, where a creepy, perverted professor uses a bunch of teenagers as bait to try and study ghosts in an old-ass mansion. Then there's one of the most famous in the franchise, Scary Movie 3, which was constantly on TV back in the cable days. No surprises there. It was a parody of The Ring, but with the aliens from Signs thrown into the mix for good measure. Scary Movie 4 was based on War of the Worlds. Remember Tom Cruise and a young Dakota Fanning? The storyline follows Cindy, aka Anna Faris, trying to solve the mystery of a ghost boy haunting her house. And last, but definitely least, Scary Movie 5, which didn't even star the main cast, and tried to parody the horror film Mama, where a couple adopts 3 children, only to find out they're being haunted by demons. So how did we go from gigantic success to please never again? The $278 million lightning strike. How 3 brothers accidentally created a comedy empire. We've had many trios of brothers grace cinema, particularly comedy, in the past, but the Wayans brothers did it all different. They weren't actually new to comedy when Scary Movie dropped. Keenan Ivory Wayans and Damon Wayans had already built their reputation as the creators of In Living Color, the sketch show that basically launched Jim Carrey. Keenan had even debuted with a bang with I'm Gonna Get You Sucker. Sean and Marlon were also doing their thing with sitcoms like The Wayans Bros when Dimension Films greenlit Scary Movie and gave it a budget of $19 million, which is still comparatively tiny when you consider that the film made a whopping $278 million worldwide, making it the highest grossing film ever directed by an African-American filmmaker at the time. It literally exploded, and no, we're not going to make a raunchy Scary Movie type joke about it. Audiences genuinely couldn't get enough of the film. From Brenda's scream to the over-the-top sex jokes, and of course the "What's up" gag that literally became a catchphrase. But behind the scenes, the Wayans were stretching every dollar. They actually relied heavily on practical effects and simple sketch-style gags rather than anything too complicated or expensive. They often relied on reusing sets, shooting quickly, going along with the cast's improv rather than reshooting, and even shooting in single takes. But did you know what the original title for this film was? It was Last Summer I Screamed Because Friday the 13th Fell on Halloween. Subtle much? Clearly, they decided that that would be a mouthful and chose Scary Movie instead. Oof. Moreover, even though the film turned into a franchise and became a comedy empire, it was initially not supposed to have any sequels at all. They, of course, had to parody horror films, and their tendency for sequels, even in their tagline, which was no mercy, no shame, no sequel. But we all know what happened next. Cha-ching! The entire franchise has earned an insane $895 million worldwide. The tagline of the second film? We lied, but like most Hollywood success stories, things got messy fast. From R-rated genius to PG-13 mediocrity, the Weinstein betrayal. Here's where the Hollywood drama really kicks in. After Scary Movie 2, the Wayans brothers were basically fired, and in a very rude and disrespectful manner. First of all, they were given an immense rush to get Scary Movie 2 ready for release. And then, when Scary Movie 3 came around, they were offered the same crappy deal they had gotten for the first film. Marlon Wayans understands that they got a bad deal for the first film because, well, it was the very first one. But after the unprecedented success they experienced, they got a much better deal for Scary Movie 2. So you can imagine their surprise when they were snubbed for the third installment. In fact, they didn't even know that Weinstein and his producers were moving ahead with the film without them. They just handed over the Wayans' franchise and work to new creators without telling them. The brothers had to read about it in the papers through Hollywood trade publications. In fact, the studio actually stole the Wayans' work and their pitch for a third film. So, when Marlon says that the producers sucked and he's glad Weinstein is paying for his crimes and it's God's revenge, we totally get where he's coming from. In fact, apparently the Weinsteins even owed the money still, but they decided to let it go and not sue. Of course, the franchise didn't work without the Wayans, it just didn't hit the same. They went from R-rated to PG-13. Scary movies without an R rating are like horror without Jamie Lee Curtis. And, as Marlon Wayans rightly said, you can't do Wayans shit without the Wayans. Ain't that the truth? The David Zucker era, when Airplane met horror and lost its soul. For Scary Movie 3 and 4, the Weinsteins brought in David Zucker. Yep, the guy behind Airplane and The Naked Gun. Now on paper, that sounds like one hell of a slam dunk. I mean, Zucker practically invented modern parody, but here's the thing, right? The Wayans' brand of comedy was very different from Zucker's. It was raw, raunchy, and chaotic, while Zucker's was more polished and slapstick-driven. Now, many criticize the Wayans' brand of humor, which has often been called cheap, but hey, that's what the Scary Movies were supposed to be all about. Stupid, brainless, and definitely not for kids. And suddenly, the franchise moved away from the hard R rating that made the first two films feel so wild, and it became PG-13. You can imagine the fans' disappointment. The whole shift in tone and formula absolutely butchered the legacy of the Wayans. I mean, imagine Scary Movie without its staple crude language, sexual innuendos, nudity, and every adult theme you could possibly think of, aka that Wayans flavor. Now, you might say, hey, isn't Scary Movie often ranked as one of the best? Well, yeah, but remember, the movie was built on a stolen pitch and several other ideas given by the Wayans themselves, even though they didn't grace the director's chair. And you can clearly see the decline in Scary Movie 4. They even brought in Kevin Hart to star in the films, but nope, nothing could recreate the Wayans' magic. The edge was simply gone, replaced by very meh jokes about Tom Cruise and iPods. But what about Scary Movie 5? The franchise graveyard. How Scary Movie 5 killed comedy. And then came the final nail in the coffin, Scary Movie 5. The main cast, the OGs, the literal queens of the franchise, Anna Faris as Cindy and Regina Hall as Brenda, did not return to reprise their roles. And what a mistake it was to go ahead without them. They also awkwardly mashed together Black Swan, Inception, and Mama with celebrity cameos from Charlie Sheen and Lindsay Lohan that literally nobody asked for. The script went through massive rewrites, with about 60% of the movie reshot after poor test screenings. Ashley Tisdale confirmed that much of the original footage was removed, even more so to preserve the PG-13 rating that nobody wanted. So, if you're wondering why scenes from the trailer aren't actually there in the film, that's why. And of course, the result was the death of the franchise. It was the worst film of the 5, making $78.6 million worldwide, which was really low for a Scary Movie. Critics were ruthless. With a 4% Rotten Tomatoes score, of course, audiences hated it too. By then, the parody genre was already on life support, but Scary Movie 5 pretty much yanked the plug. Box office autopsy, $897 million to $78 million, a franchise's death spiral. All right, let's crunch some numbers. A call to all the math geeks, whip out your calculators. The original Scary Movie burst out of the gate with a whopping $278 million worldwide, and even under the Wayans' creative direction, the sequel still slipped to $141 million. Yes, Scary Movie 3 did manage to pull it back a little with $220 million, but the spiral was inevitable. The fourth installment raked in $178 million, and let's not even talk about the fifth. $78 million? You've got to be kidding. So what happened? Of course, there was some franchise fatigue where people were just tired of watching the same thing over and over again with a new look. And I think that's a larger critique on the parody genre, particularly the Scary Movie franchise, which has often been criticized for not going deep into the original material to actually successfully parody. After all, lazy references and name drops can only last so long. After a certain point, sex jokes just don't cut it anymore. But there were other problems too. The studio's decisions regarding creative teams and casts were killing the momentum, and of course, fans eventually gave up on the franchise and moved on, just like the studio should have. The parody pandemic. How Scary Movie infected, killed an entire genre. And here's the worst part, right? Scary Movie didn't just ruin itself, it accidentally ruined parody films altogether. We all know how quickly Hollywood jumps on bandwagons and success trains and tries to replicate whatever's working at the box office. And the same thing happened here, except most of these knockoffs that ruined the genre came from the duo of Jason Friedberg and Aaron Seltzer. Let me give you some context. While the Wayans were working on Scary Movie, Friedberg and Seltzer, at the time, were working on a very similar script in parallel. So, the studios bought their script to prevent legal hassles and give them credit by including them as writers in the film. But things only got worse from there. Remember Date Movie, Epic Movie, Meet the Spartans, and Disaster Movie? Yeah, we wish we didn't either. They took the parody genre and took all the cleverness and wit out of it, instead giving us a bunch of lazy pop culture references. And holy shit did they milk that. They even mentioned themselves as 2 of the 6 writers of Scary Movie at promotions of their films. They weren't the only ones. You've also got Not Another Teen Movie, Superhero Movie, Not Another Church Movie, and the list goes on and on. Needless to say, the genre perished. Critical massacre from 51% to 4%. The reviews that buried a franchise. If you want to measure the franchise's slow death, just take a look at Rotten Tomatoes. Now, we don't always agree with Rotten Tomatoes ratings, but this one's a sure shot. The first Scary Movie scored 51%. Hey, that's not amazing, but it's pretty decent for a raunchy spoof. But Scary Movie 2 dove to 13% and had to be picked up by Scary Movie 3 to 35%. The fourth installment added nothing of significance, the rating stalled at 34%. And Scary Movie 5, well, you already know it bombed and got a 4%. Critics called it lazy, uninspired, and painful. They've even called it boring and tragically unfunny. Oof, fans have literally said, warn others not to see it, and that it's the worst movie they've ever seen in their lives. Ouch. But hey, it's completely deserved. While the franchise as a whole has received mixed reviews, some positive, some negative, reviews only got worse and worse over time. The Ghostface Resurrection. Why Scary Movie 6 could save or destroy everything. But wait, there's a twist ending. Now, we're not even sure if this is good news or bad news because who in the world is going to tolerate another Scary Movie? But at least this one sees the return of the original creators and cast. In 2024, it was announced that Scary Movie 6 is officially happening, and that too with the Wayans brothers back in charge for the first time since 2001. And yeah, this one will be R-rated. No more PG-13 shenanigans. To add to that, Anna Faris and Regina Hall will also be returning, so maybe just one more time for nostalgia's sake? Of course, there's the million-dollar question. Do parody films even work in 2025? It's a good question, especially given how horror has evolved and become more nuanced with films like Get Out, Hereditary, and even Megan. But with the Wayans' raunchy creativity back in the picture, we're excited to see what they come up with. Cultural Death Certificate. How social media murdered movie parodies. Now, even if Scary Movie 6 does work, the world has changed a whole bunch. Back in 2000, you had to go to the theater to watch a 2-hour parody, but now you just open TikTok or YouTube and you get instant parody skits every day. Hell, memes move way faster than Hollywood can keep up with, so why would anybody wait 2 years for a spoof of Barbie? Twitter literally already did it in 2 hours. We think that's the biggest hurdle Scary Movie 6 and all other future parodies will face. How to stay relevant and fresh in a world where humor and whatever trending funny topic or meme changes every 24 hours. You have to wake up and refresh Twitter and it's just a whole bunch of new shit. The $172 million question. Could the Wayans have saved their own franchise? That said, the biggest what-if question is, could the Wayans brothers have kept the franchise alive if they hadn't been pushed out? Now, considering their later work, like A Haunted House and its sequel, it's fair to say yes. Are they perfect? Absolutely. But audiences seem to enjoy them, even if just slightly, calling the first one stupid but entertaining. So it's clear that even though the genre is dying, well, dead, well, actually decomposing, the Wayans brothers can still sell it somehow. Those films made over $170 million combined on tiny budgets with nothing but Wayans flavor. So yeah, maybe they could have saved the franchise, or at least they could have given it a more graceful death. Marvelous verdict! So that's all of, well, everything that's happening with the Scary Movie franchise, which started off as a bold, raunchy, and raging success, but then got battered away into oblivion. Now, with Scary Movie 6 on the horizon, there's a sliver of hope for a resurrection. But hey, expect disappointment and you won't be disappointed, am I right? So what do you think about the franchise? Are you going to watch Scary Movie 6 in theaters? Is Parody dead, or did the new Naked Gun film resurrect it? Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below, and if you liked this content, don't forget to like and subscribe. It makes a big difference to us. Unfortunately, that's all we got for you this time, so thanks for watching, stay safe out there, and have a marvelous day.